Okay, so here we got a ProRock 60 35 spline shafts. This is set up for a TJ Jeep. As you can see, all the brackets, a lot of surface rust. It's been sitting outside. We're gonna clean it up, put an ARB with some 488 gears in there, and let's see how this moves along. Okay, so we have washed it, cleaned it, a lot of wire wheel, Scotch-Brite, sanding. Housing looks pretty good. Looks brand new again. At this point, we're going to chase all the holes. Make sure we clean the threads. Same with our cap hole, bolt holes. Our hats, there's threads in there we're gonna take care of, and we're gonna seal the joints. So tube the housing joint, we're gonna seal all that. Make sure we have no oil leaking out of the spreader hole or the rosette holes, and the same goes for the tube end, the flange to the tube. There's a seam here, we're gonna seal that with a little silicone. Make sure everything is sealed up good. After that, we're gonna start throwing the gears and diffing. Okay, so at this point, we've got our gear mounted. We need to finish cleaning up what we've done here. So this thing was very rusty. I used some kind of gel, left it kind of marked, but it's pretty clean, you know. But one thing I do need to do is chase all the threads, because they got a little water and a little rust as well. So right now I'm going to use my taps. I got a tap for the cap bolts, which is a half 13, half inch by 13 threads per inch. And for these diff cover bolts, I got the 5/16 18 thread pitch tap for that. Right, so they're pretty it looks like they have some rust in there, so it's gonna need a little, we're gonna need to chase it some. So I'm gonna use a little bit of tapping oil or tap fluid, you know, any kind of oil should do, but I like to use tapping fluid. So let me get my tap handle, and we're going to chase some threads. A little oil. We'll start here. I'm just going to thread it until I get all the way. So you see I have my hand here. I want to be even. I don't want to pull, because I'm going to snap that tap inside the housing, and that's not easy to get out. So it goes pretty smooth, but once you feel resistance, I'm sure you bottomed out. So at this point, I'm gonna back up, because I feel I've hit the bottom. So let me take that out. You can see there's a little bit of gunk in there. So once we got through all the bolt holes, we'll blow out the holes. We'll brake clean them and blow them out. At the same time, I'm going to blow these tap off, get that old rust and oil out. And do the next hole. I'm going to keep doing all of them that way. And make sure you see how easy it's going. You know, if you start to get resistance, or you feel, you know, you could be at the wrong angle, you might start cutting new threads, and that's not good as well. And you got something else to fix. So I'm at the bottom, and I'm going to go back. Blow that out. Okay, that one's finished, so that should take care of all the cover bolts. You see there's just a little bit of like rust dust on there, not really any chips or anything like that, so it looks pretty clean. Just want to make sure that it's very clean. So once I chase these other threads for the cap bolts, we'll go ahead and blow them out, flush them out, and then they'll be ready for the job to go on. So let me change my tap. I'm gonna move to my half 13. So same thing, a little oil. So remember, you want to get a good start. If you feel some funny resistance, you want to back up and inspect what's going on. Make sure you're not cross-threading or anything like that. If you pull the tap out and you see a bunch of chips, that may mean that you started cutting new threads, so that's not good. Especially on something like a cap bolt or a cover bolt, you know, where you're really needing it. So this one has a lot of gunk in there. So, not too bad. Let's blow it off, move on to the next. Okay, next one. And the last cap bolt hole. Okay, so let's take a look at these holes. You can see they're nice and tapped. Now we just gotta flush them out. Alright, everything looks okay. So now we're gonna flush them out. So I'm gonna grab a rag, and before I spray the brake cleaner in there or into the hole, I'm just gonna flush out what's already in there. other stuff, little paint chips and things. So at this point, we're gonna throw a little brake cleaner in. Oh, a little bit too much. I'll wash out these threads from any of this oil. Okay, wipe that there. Make sure I don't want no brake cleaner ruining my paint job. Clean that up. We're gonna blow out these holes one more time. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's take a look. The holes look nice and clean. No more rust, you know. So now we can move on to our next step, which would be we're gonna seal these joints. So you see where the tube meets the housing. We want to flush. Okay, so we finished tapping the holes. Now we're going to seal these tubes. So if you see where the tube meets the housing, you know, we got to really clean it well and add some silicone. So what these are here, those are little gussets, so oil can travel through and get past the bearing and travel through the tubes. Okay, so we're gonna, I've already cleaned it, but you want to really clean this well, that way no oil can get through, and actually add some under that little area there if you can. And otherwise, you know, housings can flex, move, a hard hit, oil can make its way through this spreader hole or even these rosette holes. All right, so make sure you do both sides. You're gonna clean it, seal it, have it ready to avoid any kind of leaks. Okay, so we're gonna get our gasket maker here, and we're just going to add a little sealant here. We've already cleaned it, so I don't want to be too sloppy. I don't want a mess everywhere, but I do want to seal that joint or tube area. Let me get a little under. And after I seal that, I'm going to wipe any excess off of the bearing seat, which will be here and here. Then I'm going to move to the other side. Any silicone here doesn't really harm it. Okay, so we got that side clean as well, or sealed up. I'm gonna wipe that side as well. I'm gonna let it dry. In the meantime, I'll be able to do the axle tube to housing end seam or joint, right? So we'll take a look at that. Let's see what we look like. So it's nice and sealed, both sides. You're gonna make sure you get all the way around that tube. Let it dry. Now over here, it's hard to see because there's no light. Let me see if I can get some light here. So here we go. So there you can see there's a seam. There's a seam right there. If I can set this up. So you can see a seam here to there where the joint is. That little line. So you want to add some silicone on that whole seam. Same thing, oil can travel through. It's best to just take care of it while you can. So we're going to do both sides. See if I can set this up so you can see. A little hard to get light there. Okay. So we're going to get some silicone, same thing, seal that area. It's okay if you get a little on the rest of the tube, it's not going to hurt it. You don't want to do no overkill, but you do want to make sure you seal that little seam up. I'm going to walk over and do the other side. Okay, so that's done there. Let's take a look. Okay, so there you see we got that side. It looks nice and sealed. Looks pretty good. It's not too much. We got our tube sealed. And then we have this side as well. So you can see looks okay. So now we can proceed to the next step, which will probably be maybe drilling some holes for the ARB and the high pinion seal. So let me get that going. Okay, so at this point you got our tube sealed. We're ready to install our gear and diff, but I'd rather pre-install or actually drill and tap our hole for the ARB, which should be going about here in this area. So you want to look under. There will be, you don't want to hit any and get into any of the bolt holes. There's a little flange here and there's a little area here. If you can see it here where it's thin, that would be a perfect spot for the ARB. If you're running a bridge, make sure that you set your bridge down and you kind of mark out where the hole would be. So at this point I'm going to grab my little silver Sharpie and I'm just going to put a little dot here, say about here, and same with the high pinion seal. We will let me adjust the housing, and we will do that here in a second. Okay, so we've got the pinion tilted up. This is a reverse cut housing, a high pinion housing, I guess. We're going to install this high pinion seal. As you can see, this is pretty much a baffle that sits here, and I got a seal onto the back of it. The holes, people always confuse those. They always point up. So holes are always pointing up. Baffle goes in this way, not the other way. All right, this way. So look at our pinion. Pinion would sit here. As you can see, it's got a polished surface. That's so the high pinion seal will sit in there and pretty much hold the oil from traveling. So it would sit basically like that. Alright, so this is moving, the holes will be facing up. Now we'll look inside that cavity, which would be here. So we're going to need to drill a hole kind of in this area in between the two races. So high pinion would sit back there. Pretty much the purpose of that is to have a higher oil level and make sure that there's oil in this back sump, you know, lubricating this back bearing while it's at that angle. It's pretty good deal. So remember, your seal would sit this way. That thing would bring the oil line up higher, so you're not going to dry out your bearing in the back, and it'll sling oil towards the back. It's going to lubricate that back bearing so it doesn't get hot. Remember, grease your seals. So we're going to mark that area as well, punch it and drill it. So I'd say if you need to measure, I'm pretty used to this, so I know exactly where to hit it, and it's going to be there. Now our ARB hole will be here, high pinion seal hole will be here. Okay, so I got my center punch. I'm going to hit right where I started. There's one, then I'm going to get this one, so I'll be able to drill. So I'm going to start with a pilot drill, meaning a smaller drill bit. Then I'm going to move up to a larger size, which would be the size I need to tap the hole with. Okay, so we're going to start drilling our pilot drill first, which is a smaller drill bit, and then we're going to move up to a 7/16 drill bit that we have here, which is a little larger. We'll slow our speed down for both of these, and we're going to tap a hole that is 1/4 18. That's what the ARB calls for, and that's almost the same thread we use for our high pinion seal. Okay, make sure you're square and straight. It feels dull. Lower the high pinion hole. Okay, now we got our pilot holes drilled. We're going to move on to our 7/16. drill bit. We'll slow our speed down. Larger drill bit, you should slow down your speed. Okay, now that we got that done, we're going to tap our holes. So we have our 1/4 tap. Alright, I'm going to grab a 1/2 inch 12-point socket that fits that. Okay, so I'm going to use this instead of a tap handle. Just make sure you tap your hole very evenly. So I'm going to tilt this slightly. Okay. So just like we tapped our cover bolt holes or chased them, we're going to do the same here. A little oil with our tap. Make sure we lubricate it. We're going to start here. And remember, don't keep going until you hit bottom. You've got to make sure that you check. So maybe you can go about 1/4 of the way or halfway, and then check it with your fitting. And you also want to look, take a side angle, top view, that the hole is straight, not at so much angle, so your hole don't, your fitting doesn't go into a funky direction. Okay, so we're gonna unthread this and we're gonna check it with our bulkhead fitting. We will clean that out in the meantime. Get rid of all these clips. Okay, so we have a bulkhead fitting under the ARB fittings, and we're just going to try to thread it in. Make sure it's not really floppy or loose. So looks like it's barely even starting, so we still got a ways to go. Maybe another 4 turns and we'll check it again. Okay, so let's start it back up by hand. Make sure we catch the threads that we already cut. I'm going to do a few more turns. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we're going to back up. So that's about halfway on this tap, which is a decent amount. So we're going to blow this out again. Clean out my tap. Grab my fitting. And try again. Seems to go pretty good. Starting to tighten up. We grab a wrench. One more size up. Okay, so let's snug it. So I want to tighten it where the threads run out. I don't want it to get tied up against the flange head or whatever. It shouldn't be loose, so it should snug up. That's why we're using an NPT tap. Right, so I think that's pretty good. We're gonna leave that alone. Oops. And we're gonna start on our high pinion hole now. So our high pinion hole, our high pinion plug is similar to the ARB fitting. Alright, so if I was to thread this into our ARB fitting, probably could plug it. Alright, so we're going to do the same thread pitch and everything for our high pinion hole. A little oil once again. We're going to get started here. Make sure we're straight and square. And I want even pressure to make sure that I'm not putting too much tension on one side. I don't want to break my tap. So I'm going to go about just below halfway point on this tap, and I'm going to back out and we're going to test fit that. So you don't want to go too deep. Like I said, you always want to go a little, check a little, go a little, check a little. Try out our plug. Seems to start okay. Starts to tighten it right here, right? So I want it to be flush, so I might just go another 2 to 3 threads on that. A little more oil. Start it off. Okay, that's about it. Let me try that again. Got a couple more threads in there. Let's see. Let me blow out that hole. Okay, so it's starting to tighten it right there. To me, I think I like that. Well, I might go a little more. I'd rather it be a little more flush than that. Okay. Just a tad more. Okay, so that's about all I'm going to do. It should be pretty close to flush while tightening it. Blow get rid of all our chips. Let's take another test. Usually go pretty good. And there it is. Alright, tighten it up good. It stays nice and flush. Alright, so now I'm just going to clean some of this oil out of here. So let's clean, do that. So now, at this point, we're able to We got our holes threaded. ARB, high pinion hole. Our tubes are sealed. Now we can start with the installation. Put in races. Start doing our gear adjustment, and we can do that next. So now we're gonna set this down, make sure everything looks good still, and start our next step.